When graphing a quadratic function in the form of f of x equals ax squared plus bx plus c, you need to know a couple of things to do it easily. First, we need to determine whether the parabola opens up, which is a is positive, or opens down, a is negative. Second, we're going to determine what the vertex is, and then we're going to determine what the intercepts are. Once we know all these, it's pretty easy to graph it. So first things first, our function f of x equals x squared plus 2x minus 8, and we need to know, does it open up or down? And so we look here and we see that a is 1 because that's the leading coefficient. And since 1 is greater than 0, we say that this opens up. So we know we have a parabola that is looking like this. So there's the first thing. Next, we're going to find its vertex. So we know what a is, and b is 2, so we can now find the vertex. So x equals negative b over 2 times a, which is going to give us negative 2 over 2, which is going to be negative 1. And now we plug negative 1 back into our function. So f of negative 1 equals negative 1 squared plus 2 times negative 1 minus 8. And when you work all that out, you're going to end up getting negative 9. So the vertex is negative 1, negative 9. So there's a second thing. And now we got to find the intercepts. So the intercepts are going to be where we set the function equal to 0 and solve. That'll give us the x-intercepts, and then we're going to put 0 in for x and get our y value, which will give us the y-intercept. So first things first, take our function, set it equal to 0, and we are going to find the x-intercepts. So factor this out. That's going to give us x plus 4 and x minus 2. So I'm factoring, but if you did quadratic formula, you'll get the same two answers. In this case, our answers are negative 4 and positive 2. So our order of pairs are negative 4, 0, and 2, 0. And so these are our x-intercepts. And now we're going to find the y-intercept. We're going to take our function and replace all the x's with 0. So y equals 0 squared plus 2 times 0 minus 8. And that's going to give us y equals negative 8. So our y-intercept is going to be 0, negative 8. Now we have all the information we need. We know that this opens up, we know the vertex, we know the x-intercepts, and we know the y-intercepts. So let's start off with graphing our points. So our vertex, negative 1, negative 9. So negative 1, negative 9 is down here. Our y-intercept at 0, negative 8, right here. And our two x-intercepts at negative 4, so 2, 3, 4. And at 2, 0. So we have all our points, and we know that this opens up, so our parabola is going to have this kind of a shape here. So we're going to connect the dots. So connect the dots as so, down to the final point here, and then we go back up. And here we have our quadratic function graphed. It's not perfect, but we got all the main points of the intercepts and the vertex, so we're feeling pretty good. Now we're going to have one that's a little bit more difficult, but we're going to go through the exact same steps. So first step, is it open up or down? So a here is negative 4, which is less than 0. So this opens down because a is negative. Now we're going to find the vertex. So we still need to know what b is, which is negative 6. And we're going to plug that into our vertex formula to find the vertex. So x equals negative 6 over 2 times negative 4. And unfortunately, we're not going to get a nice number here. We're going to get 6 over negative 8, which is going to be negative 3/4. And since we're graphing, you can use a fraction like this, or you can turn it into a decimal, which we could say is negative 0.75. So whichever you prefer to go with, fraction or decimal, is the same thing. Sometimes a decimal is a little bit easier to see graphing-wise. In any case, we're going to now plug this back into our function. And so I'm going to stick with a fraction. So g of negative 3/4 is equal to negative 4 times negative 3/4 squared minus 6 times negative 3/4 plus 2. And so there's a whole lot here, so I'd recommend throw it in a calculator, let it do the heavy lifting for you. But you're going to come out with 17/4 as your y value. Or if you want to, you can write as a decimal, 4.25. So I'd recommend probably using decimals when it comes to graphing because it's a little bit easier. So I'm going to say that the vertex here is negative 0.75 and 4.25. Now I know what my vertex is. I know it opens down. Now I got to find my x and y intercepts. So give myself some space here. So I'm going to set my function equal to 0. So negative 4x squared minus 6x plus 2 equals 0. And this will give me the x-intercepts. So you're going to probably want to use the quadratic formula for this because it's going to look kind of nasty. So a is negative 4, b is negative 6, and c is 2. And so in the quadratic formula, x equals negative 6 plus or minus the square root of negative 6 squared minus 4 times a times c all over 2 times negative 4. Now again, be careful running this through. It can be a little bit tricky. But when you do this, you're going to get two values, and I'm going to round them both to 2 decimal places. I'm going to get positive 0.28 and negative 1.78. So the order pairs here are going to be 0.28, 0 and negative 1.78, 0. These being the x-intercepts. And now we got to find the y-intercept. So we're just going to replace all the x's with 0. So we're going to get y equals negative 4 times 0 squared minus 6 times 0 plus 2. And that's going to give us y equals 2, the nice easy one, which is going to be 0, 2. So the y-intercept. So try and move it all into one screen so we can see it. So it would be kind of zoomed out far. That should be okay. So we know that this opens down, has a vertex of negative 0.75 and 4.25. Our two x-intercepts here and our y-intercept here. So let's graph them. So negative 0.75 and 4.25, that's going to be right about here, and then 425, so 1, 2, 3, 4, and we'll say 1/4. Not easy to see, but it's right there. Next is 0.28, which is essentially 1/4 here, so we'll say right there. And then negative 1.78, so negative 1 and right about there. And then 0, 2, which is the nice one here. And again, it opens down, so let's kind of zoom in and see the work we have. So it's more or less okay. And since we know it opens down, and this vertex is the highest point, we're just going to kind of draw our graph as best we can. And so we have our points, we have our vertex, and we have it opening downwards. So this is the equation, or the graph of this equation, when we go through all the steps.